Envision a world where aging halts at 25, with a strange clock on your arm giving you just 1 year to live unless you earn more time. Thus, today determines the price of tomorrow. In this world we meet Justin Timberlake, and now his name is Will Salas, and he is a young man of 28 years who lives with his mother who seems much younger than him, although that same day he turns 50. Will lives in a poor neighborhood, gets up with less than hours in the day, and works in a factory for a couple of hours, while the cost of living keeps increasing day by day. Money doesn't exist and everything works with time. Once you turn 25, this clock is activated, and by grabbing another person's arm, you get paid or paid. After work, Will goes to a bar where we meet his best friend from him, but he is always drunk and it doesn't matter. The important thing is, there's a rich man in the bar with a century on his watch. There Will tells him that they are going to kill him for that time, but the man does not leave, and at that moment some mafiosi appear and takes everyone out of the bar except the rich man. The mobster wants all that time, so they're going to fight for him by doing what looks like a little weird wrestling. But the rich man is so drunk that he first goes to the bathroom where he looks like Will to save him and hide him from the bad guys all night. Apparently this man's name is Henry Hamilton. He lived for 105 years and he's tired of living. He wants to die once and for all, and that's why he went to the most dangerous neighborhood to get drunk in a bar. Henry tells us that the reason taxes and the cost of living are getting higher and higher is because in order for the rich to live forever, the poor must die, because not everyone can live forever the next morning, while Will was actually sleeping his 106 years. And he leaves him a note saying, "Don't waste your time." He goes to a bridge, his time runs out, and he eventually dies. After Henry's suicide, Will goes to see his friend Borrell and does the worst thing you can do with a friend with alcohol problems. He gives him 10 years and he immediately goes to the bar. That night, his mother comes home from work and has to take a bus to meet Will. But now the cost of the trip is 2 hours and she can't afford it, so she has to run. When our protagonist realizes that he wasn't on the bus, he starts running to catch up with her. But just when they are about to touch, he dies in Will's arms. Meanwhile, we meet Raymond Leon, the leader of the Timekeepers, who would be like the police in this world. It's that they discover Henry's body and now they want to know where. Where has he been all that time? Meanwhile, Will, saddened by the death of his mother, decides to leave the poor area and go seek revenge in New Greenwich, a luxurious residential area on the outskirts of the city where rich people live. So he gets in a taxi and goes through the different time zones paying tolls. Super expensive. Already in New Greenwich, we see how all rich people live quietly without having to run. So our character goes to a hotel, buys an expensive suit, and from now on he can do everything that rich people do, like sleep, eat, drink champagne, see pretty girls, and go to the casino. But before the casino, the police were looking at the cameras and they noticed that someone was moving through different areas. So now they think Will killed Henry and now they're looking for him. Back at the casino, Will sits down at a poker table against a rich man with 6,000 years on his clock. They talk a little, they bet 200 years. Will bets everything he has and only has 30 seconds left. But the movie is left as one. Now, so conveniently for the plot, it wins. And he takes the prize like 1,000 years after the games. This man introduces him to his daughter and she invites him to a party tomorrow night. So Will buys himself a super expensive car and ends up going to the party. He talks to him for a while and knows that he comes from the ghetto because he saw him run the same way. This much doesn't matter. What matters is that she is also worried because with all that time on the clock she never does anything risky. So he takes her to the beach and they go into the sea. The fact is that no one cares that they went into the sea, but then the police arrive and question Will. There he explains to them that he won everything legally, but the police don't believe him, so they take away his time and he only has 2 hours left. At that point, Will escapes and kidnaps the rich guy's daughter. The cops follow him, but he loses them driving like a bullfighter, which, considering he was poor and didn't have a car, really stands out, and they eventually head back to their town. Well, remember I told you I drove like a bull? Now he passes over some pinches left by the mafiosi from before and the loan. That's why he crashes and destroys the entire car. After the crash, the mobsters appear and steal the girl's time, but they hear something and have to leave, and now they only have 35 minutes left every one. on. As they run out of time, they go to look for their friend Burrell, but his wife tells them that he got drunk and died with 9 years on the clock, so they end up selling some hoops for 2 days. Later, Will calls Mr. Ways and asks him for 1,000 years for the rescue of his daughter. He also talks to Leon about Will's father's death, but we don't really care because the plot is never going to explain what happened to Will's father. Then they go to his house and Sylvia asks him some questions about his family. He tells her that his mother ran out of time and that his father was a fighter, so he explains how his father used to win fights. Apparently he waited until the last moment when his time was running out and his opponent was watching. To his watch, and he lost concentration, he turned his arm around and ended up winning. The next morning they were waiting for his father to send the time for rescue, but he doesn't send anything. Then we tell Sylvia to call the police to come pick her up because this whole kidnapping thing was over. While Sylvia is talking to her father, the timekeeper appears and points a cool gun, but she shoots him and they end up escaping in his car. But don't worry because the police officer is alive and another colleague spends him looking for the two of us. The protagonists are a taxi, they steal some money, take a car and spend the night there while the police continue looking for him. Now this fugitive couple is going to rob one of those money lending places because I didn't tell you. But the father of is like a great banker who has many places where he lends time to poor people at exorbitantly high interest rates. They get to this place, drive a truck in, break a couple of windows, and you're done conveniently. There are no cops and the vault is wide open. Yes, the gigantic door of the vault is wide open, and by the time the police arrive, it is late. With all the time they stole, they begin to distribute it among the poor, and on TV, they tell us that during the last 5 days, they have already done like 6 robberies, although probably the security vaults of all the banks were open. Otherwise, it is not explained how two people with guns could do all that in 5 days. Meanwhile, the mobsters continue to murder and rob the people of the ghetto, and now they are going to try to catch Will because the police are offering a 10-year reward. Meanwhile, the couple is in a hotel, the police appear but they manage to escape through the roofs, and then in a bus where the same driver is who did not let Will's mother get on. That night they go to a hotel and rent all the rooms so no one bothers them. But just as they're going up to their room, this man shows up and sees them. Later, the mobsters. They grab a group of random people to tell them where Will is. One poor guy has no idea and only for that the most, but another is the one who had seen them at the hotel, so he tells them where they are in exchange for part of the reward, although he is probably already dead. So the mobsters break into the hotel and catch Will and A, but making the same mistake he made with the millionaire at the bar. He thinks Will deserves one last chance, so then they are going to fight by continuing with one of the least exciting fights. Movie story. Will looks like he's going to die, but using the same technique his father used, he waits for the opponent to lose focus and kill everyone. But all this giving money to the poor is of no use because the rich just increase the interest rate on loans, increase the cost of living, and that's it. They solve the problem. To make a really big change, they need 1,000 years, and for this they go back to New Greenwich to see Mr. Ways. Sylvia seems to give up, but Will goes undercover as one of the bodyguards and they take Mr. Ways to steal 1,000 years. Yeah, apparently security, police and bodyguards are very bad in this world. Continuing with the lack of security, Mr. Ways comes as a password to his other daughter's birthday, so they easily steal that thing that is like a 1,000-year-old pen drive. But before leaving, Mr. Ways tells them that for a few to be immortal, many must all the cops die. They start to panic because they stole thousands and thousands years old, so they start chasing Will and create a barricade of cars so that they do not enter the poor area. To no one's surprise, the barricade doesn't work and Will goes through the cardboard security check. They arrive at the ghetto and the police crash their car. But Will gives time to a poor girl, so she shares it with the rest of the ghetto people and they escape hiding in the crowd. The timekeeper continues to chase them, and just when he is about to stop them, he runs out of time and dies at that moment. At that moment, Will and Sylvia realize that they have less than 1 minute left on their watch because they did steal 1,000 years. They carried them with them in the car for hours, but forgot to put some time on. There they realize that the police have some time in the car and they run to look for him. Will arrives first and in a scene similar to the beginning catches up with A, and now they both survive at least until the next day. Meanwhile, the citizens of the poor region begin to emigrate and cross the richer places where Nobody knows what they're going to do for a living. Will and Sylvia are still fugitives, and now the bounty on them is 100 years, and now they are into robbing even bigger, really big banks. So now there are two options. Either you have the vault open, or you have security and you go to jail, like any real-life bank. That was tomorrow's price. Don't forget to subscribe and activate the bell so you don't miss the next videos.